Welcome to the September 9th edition of Gold and Black Live. And I don't know if we call him friend of the show or what we call Tim Newton. We'll call him Indiana Sportscaster of the Year. I know, like I said, we'll talk about that as well. But welcome, Tim, and welcome to our Friday edition of Gold and Black Live.
You can say old guy at the other end of the Zoom.
That's fine.
That's just as accurate as anything else.
That's fine. Well, hey, as you know, this is a business, so we're going to actually promote our sponsors too in the front end, and you get that about as much as anybody. But Triple X on the hill, but on the level, the Purdue tradition since 1929. I think there'll be a chance someday that they'll have a Tim Newton item before long. You never know. What would that be? What would that be if it was your item?
Well, it for me, honestly, it would be a plain hamburger.
Okay.
Burger and bun. I'm very, very low condiment guy. Maybe pickles, maybe.
No ketchup and mustard.
No mustard, no ketchup. No, nothing.
Really?
No onions, no tomatoes. No.
I think the Airsmans, both Greg and Kerry, would be happy with that because it might simplify things. When you go from that to Dwayne Purvis and the Bernie Flowers All Pro, you've simplified things.
By the way, many years ago, I played on the Triple X softball team. They sponsored when I worked back in radio at WASK. Triple X sponsored our team. We were terrible, but we had great uniforms.
Yeah, I love those colors. We also have another sponsor, a friend of ours too, Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, that is. Tim, we got a football game tomorrow, and obviously the Boilermakers, a disappointing loss in that 35-31 loss to the Penn State Nittany Lions 8 days ago.
Doesn't it seem like about 80 days ago?
Yeah, it does. It's like forever since Purdue has played. And yet, Purdue has not lost to an FCS opponent. They came close back in 2013 in Indiana State. Ricardo Allen had a big interception at the end of that game. My point is, this is a game that Purdue can get some reps in for some folks in theory. But you also got to take care of business. What do you think you'll see from Purdue on Saturday afternoon at 4?
Well, what I think you're hoping for this week is the same thing we saw last year at Connecticut, where you take care of business in the first half and you can rest a lot of your starters in the second half, because it gets a lot tougher starting next week. You've got 3 of the next 4 on the road, and anybody that saw Syracuse play knows that they're going to be difficult. Florida Atlantic can score, so you hope that game doesn't turn into a shootout. But yeah, you just got to take care of business this week against Indiana State. Keep everybody healthy, and see how many people you can get some meaningful playing experience.
Health is an important thing, obviously, and we don't know. I mean, it seems like there's always surprise as you get close to game time, and you're doing the radio show and Facebook Live and all that before. But talk about the importance of this team. Obviously, the quarterback needs to stay healthy. This is a team that has some depth, but injuries, you don't want them creeping in, especially when you play a team like Indiana State. We remember Torrey Williams back in 2006 and a catastrophic injury there. Talk about, though, that needed the depth of this team and what it may bring to the table.
Well, and I think you've already seen that when you look at the 2 injuries that Purdue had in training camp, the major injuries. DeMarje Lewis, DeMarje was having a great camp, but you've got 12 guys still on that defensive line who can play. I mean, they went 3 deep at every position last week. But Garrett Miller at tight end, that was a big loss, because he was a big part of their package, especially in the red zone. I think Garrett Miller's a guy that can play at the next level, and to take him out so soon before the season, that's a big loss. And you look at the positions on this football team, and you mentioned one. You want to keep number 16 healthy this year, because if you don't, that changes your entire outlook on the season. You're a little bit thin still at linebacker. You're a little bit thin right now at cornerback, although everybody's starting to come back. So there is more depth than I think Jeff has had in his 6 years here, but it's not all the way across the board. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is that all those positions will be a little bit like the offensive line and defensive line are right now.
Yeah, Brock Thompson's been battling an injury. Jalen Graham was hurt a little bit in camp. You just never know exactly what you're going to see come 4 o'clock But it will be it'll be a situation where, again, it's going to be a storyline for every team in college football. It's just a matter of degree. All right, your impressions going back to Penn State. Obviously, a golden opportunity for Purdue that the Boilermakers just didn't quite get it done, tackling, etc. Anything else with 8 days of clarity between that game and now to what you saw on opening night?
Well, I'm sure as just about every Purdue fan has done, I've gone back over and over and over to the plays in that game and in somewhat excruciating detail. And if you make one play, if Aiden throws the ball a little bit further in front of TJ Sheffield on 3rd down and 6, the game's over. Purdue wins the game. If they wrap up a tackle at the end of the first half and don't let a guy go 67 yards for a touchdown. So if is this one of the smallest words in the dictionary, but it's one of the biggest words in sports. And it's hard to lose a game like that. You go back to the Music City Bowl, the first Music City Bowl, and the turning point of that was the opening coin toss, right? that game was over before it started. And those games are actually a lot easier, I think, to shake off because there's not a play or a situation that you can look at. Games like against Penn State and knowing what's at stake. If you beat Penn State, you put yourself in the driver's seat for a lot of different things. Now, everything's still on the table, but what you've done now is you've reduced your margin for error as you go forward. So, teams have to learn to close games, and it's been an issue, I would say, since the Joe Tiller era. You get to with a passing football team, can you hold a lead late if and when you can't run the football? And unfortunately, on last Thursday night, they didn't make enough plays in the fourth quarter offensively. I felt bad for the defense because I thought the defense had put the offense in position twice to salt the game away. And then you kind of got a little bit of that sick feeling with a couple of minutes left because you didn't know how much the defense still had in the tank. And, Sean Clifford, who I thought was okay in that first game, played the best 2 minutes of the game on that last drive. So you put that all together, very disappointing. But it's one of 12, and you've got to shake it off. And there's still a lot of football to be played.
Isn't that the Purdue way, or I don't know what it is, where Sean Clifford, like you said, I thought was extremely pedestrian. Now Purdue had something to do with that, but boy, he did come through down the stretch, and that made a big difference, obviously, for the Nittany Lions getting out of there alive with that drive at the end. All right, just from a broadcasting standpoint, always interested in your prep, and you do a terrific job. Nobody is more prepared than you, but is it harder to do an Indiana State team that you don't really, my guess is you don't know a lot about or don't know the personnel? We all know Kurt Mallory, but to talk about that, and is that a harder game to prepare for than, let's say, in Ohio State, where you might know a half dozen of the guys or more than that heading into it?
Well, the internet, Alan, can be a beautiful thing. It can be a horrible thing. We've seen the worst of times, but the best of times is in this age of information, you can get just about anything you need about everything. And that was the case here. I was able to, even before we played Penn State, I was looking a little bit at Indiana State. And I also I talked to somebody on their radio crew, Luke Martin, who's doing their play-by-play. We had about an hour-long conversation earlier this week, so we were kind of going over lineups and things like that. So, having done women's basketball for 30 plus years, there are teams you play that you just don't know, and it's actually kind of fun to go in and see what you can learn about them in a short period of time. So, the one thing I think, going back to the Daryl Hazel era, I think we always took pride in our radio crew that we prepared for every game during that time, just like any other time, like it was the biggest game that we were ever going to do. And, that's part of being a professional in this business. Is it doesn't matter what your team is doing. You can't control what happens on the field. The only thing I can control is what happens when we put headsets on. And so, there's not the right away, like an Ohio State team that you're going to see play every week, and all their players, and who you got to stop. But you can find out the information that you need to find out. So it's just a puzzle that has to be put together. Sometimes the pieces are a little harder to find, but you can always find them.
Yeah, but you got to work with Pete Quinn. That makes that puzzle always more exciting.
Yeah, so. I've been on the crew for 28 years with Pete, but I don't know what that is in dog years. So, Pete, I will tell you this, Pete. There is no more enthusiastic Boilermaker, no bigger supporter of Purdue. And, between the two of us with the years that we have together and the fact that we went to school here at the same time and shared a lot of the same experiences, when you have a situation, and I don't know how you are working with us and then doing the post-game radio show. For me, the sadness or frustration always sets in the day after.
Yeah.
Because you're so busy during the broadcast. I've got a broadcast to do.
Yeah.
I can't be depressed or angry or frustrated or whatever. It always hits about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
After you've gone home and you wake up in the middle of the night and you start to go over every single play. So, but again, it's both the beauty and the horror of sports is you can go on one spectrum to the next. And you go back to the Music City Bowl last year. What a roller coaster ride we all took in the fourth quarter alone. So it is the beauty of sports.
I don't know if Mark Wolpold paid you time. You worked 2 games that day. I think that game was 4 hours and 50 minutes.
Well, and the worst part,
crazy.
Yeah, the worst part was my son spots for me, and he went
Yeah.
down to the Music City Bowl. We drove home after the game.
Yes, you did.
So I think we hit our garage at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
so it was a lot happier drive than it was a couple of years prior.
Yeah, better that after a win than after a loss, to be sure. So, Tim, thanks so much for your time. We always enjoy you being a guest on our show. We'll look forward to you started off with Facebook Live 2 hours
2:30.
before.
So 2:30 tomorrow. It'll be an hour and a half before, and then we go on the air for the pregame at 3. So the fans who want to get the latest information on who's going to play and who's not going to play, we'll have it starting on Facebook Live at 2:30. That's I believe they have it on the Purdue Athletics Facebook site. So.
Yep, perfect. All right, sounds good. And we always obviously enjoy your work on the Jeff Brom show, et cetera. Women's basketball, that'll be another topic we'll get into a little bit later in the year. So, Tim, thanks again. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Our second segment will be the goldenblack.com staff who will probably sing Tim's praises as well, but we'll look at, and then segment 3, Kyle Orton will be our guest. Of course, we're excited to have Kyle in town this weekend for all the festivities and being inducted into Indiana Football Hall of Fame. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Golden Black Live.